Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's Nate and Francis. Nate, how are things? It's all hot and shitty here again. We had a brief moment of some nice weather, and then now I've got texts from the city saying stay inside until Friday. Fun future we've created for ourselves. How's things on your side of the pond?
I mean, the weather's pretty nice. It's warm, but like very comfortable. Weirdly, it has been like more humid than I would be expecting. Like randomly, Britain, one of the things with this summer is like Europe's been having a hardcore heat wave. We have not really. I want to say in June we did. That was what prompted me and Cynthia to just buy an air conditioner, because with her being pregnant, it was like, fuck God, just all right.
Yeah,
we need to have it on standby. And then we basically, not only did we not need it, but I think once or twice I had to go in and actually change the settings so the heat didn't turn on at night because it got cold. But we've gotten kind of, this often happens, I find, in this country, that when you have like a weirdly cold summer, sometimes you get like a break in August, and then sometimes also in September you randomly get weather again. But it's nice. The humidity's weird. I swear to God, there's more bugs this year. Like, I know that in general there's probably fewer bugs in the world, but I just feel like the weather has and such seems to be creating a situation where I've been noticing more insects everywhere, probably in the sense of like it just being hotter and more conducive to, cold-blooded creatures to be getting around all the time.
Right. I imagine you run into them with your bike too. Do you have to wear like a face mask to keep from eating bugs?
No, it's nowhere near as bad as America in that. I mean, in general, my experience in Europe, like in Western Europe and in Britain, it's just nowhere near as bad. Like I just, I can recall driving long distance years ago all over America, like Alaska and across like the Great Plains and the Midwest and in the Southwest, et cetera. And like, you get done with a drive and your car's just fucking covered in bugs. Just absolutely fucking, like you've got to pressure wash that shit.
Yeah.
I've never really had that problem here. I did have the gnat that went down my fucking lungs, and I got a lung irritation that led to not an infection, but like a severe enough irritation that I needed to get on steroids for a while. That was last year actually. So I was hacking and coughing and sounding like I was going to die. But no, man, like, I rode my bike today.
COVID flew down your throat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the thing that was kind of freaky for Cynthia, I think, was that like normally a thing like that would go away pretty quickly, and it was maybe a couple months after I'd had COVID, and she was like, "Is this just you got unlucky, or is this like some kind of long COVID thing? Like what's going on?" But eventually,
no, dear, I swallowed a bug.
Yeah, I inhaled a bug, and now it's laid eggs in my lungs. No, fucking, it was irritated lung tissue, and it just kept getting worse. And the air quality in London is very, very bad. And so as a result, like, I think that was making it worse. And then hilariously, I went to Switzerland for 2 weeks with Cynthia when she was starting her job last summer. And then when I came back, it was like, as soon as I got back to London air, my lungs were like, oh, fuck, shit, we thought we were having a break. And then like, it just got so much worse.
Your lungs finally getting like, there's the pollution that we're
yeah, exactly.
Prepared for, like gasping, dying, fish out of water is like, no, I need to start inhaling lead again in England so that I can survive.
Yeah, I'm doing the most un-British thing, and that is I opted to use lead-free solder while I'm building electronic shit. I should be inhaling lead fumes and poisonous
how are you going to get? You can't get full British brain unless you're
inhaling.
Yeah, I was
going to say, like,
lead.
I'm failing to assimilate. The Home Office should just cancel my British passport.
Yeah, you like trans people, and you're not licking lead pipes. What the fuck's the matter with you?
Yeah, but like I said, I rode my bike in today, and it was beautiful. It was honestly like absolutely gorgeous weather. I mean, I had to use like New Yorker voice at one point while riding. That doesn't happen all the time, but periodically.
Hey, is that like a "Hey, I'm riding here" kind of thing?
Or is it when people are just stupid, like on bikes and shit, or pedestrians, or like people just being really dumb and not paying attention? And today there's this one intersection where when you're heading north off of Tower Bridge, coming from South London into North London, or like north of the river. There's a cycle lane basically, and to go onto the Cable Street what they call cycle superhighway. Like it's basically like a blue paved cycle path that's elevated off the road, and it's supposed to be cycle only, but like obviously sometimes pedestrians walk on it too. But it's nice. It's just like if you're getting from going east west in London, it's really nice to do that and like be on a sort of segregated cycle path. But anyway, this woman was on a bike, and she didn't look particularly confident, and she was coming north off the bridge, and then you have the green arrow giving you the right of way to turn to get onto the cycle path. But like, it's a pretty busy intersection, and like you want to get clear of it. And I'm always nervous there because other people on the other side of the cycle lane are just stupid. Like they'll just blow right through it when the people making the turn have the right of way. And as you make that turn, if you don't know what you're doing, it's a little freaky because you show up and you're like, wait, this is oncoming traffic, but they have to stop. The cross traffic for the cycle lane has to stop. You have the right of way. And the cars that are going the same direction as you, they can either do a U-turn to go back to the embankment or back south on Tower Bridge, or they can turn right on a one-way and go down Cable Street, but they can't, like, they're not going to hit you. Like, you have the right of way. So anyway, we have the arrow and we're going, this woman's in front of me, and she like hesitates and kind of chokes in the door there and is basically blocking the intersection to get clear of where all the fucking cars are at and then onto the cycle path. And I was just like, lady, it's a green light, fucking go. And like, it came out so naturally, like just so effortlessly. Similarly, I had a guy who was checking his phone on his on one of those rental scooters, standing in the lane blocking it, and green light, and I was like, hey, it's a green light. And I was like, the guy just wouldn't get out of the way. And I just had to go around, I'm like, oh man, what the fuck's wrong with you? And he very Alan Partridgey, British guy offended. She was like, oh, fuck off, you twat. And I was just like, this is maybe a year ago, very, not even thinking, like no brain to mouth barrier. It's like, yeah, suck my dick. And I was just like, fuck, dude, you're not in New York anymore. People are going to be somewhat taken aback by that.
Yeah, to have like an angry American suddenly screaming at them.
That was the thing that Milo said to me once. He says that that's kind of a cheat code because British people are like, the whole thing is just step on each other's toes and no one says anything, which isn't actually true. I think that like people are mega confrontational here. It's in different situations, but there's a certain kind of person that does this and sort of like is pushy and is, passive aggressive. And the one thing they're not expecting is for an American to just fucking lose their mind at them. Because they've looked at me and assessed that I'm the kind of British person, that they can do this with. And I'm not going to just, pull out the pint glass I keep in my backpack and fucking smash it in their face. And I just, like I said, I don't go looking for arguments. Especially since I started the meds, man, I'm pretty even-handed about losing my temper. But like, don't be a fucking idiot. And certainly don't be an idiot and then run your mouth to me that I'm like, can you stop being a fucking idiot, please? And so, yeah, apparently that's Milo's like, yeah, Brits are not really going to know. It's their worst nightmare. They looked at you and thought you were British and tried the passive aggressive shit, didn't realize you were American. It's just like, behind door number 3 is like, it's 400 volts of direct current and you're going to die.
Yeah, you slightly inconvenience a New Yorker in London by accident and you immediately hear, why don't you suck my dick? And you're like, oh, I'm about to get shot. Okay.
Well, it's more like if you're gonna stand in the blocking traffic, checking your phone, and like fucking look at the light, and just like, and if you're gonna do that, get out of the lane. Like you're literally, because you got to realize in the way that works. Like once that green light's not green anymore, it's not one of those intersections where you really want to try your chances with sort of the cycle equivalent of jaywalking. You know what I mean? Like you got a lot of oncoming traffic, a lot of unpredictable, like shit's coming from a bunch of different angles. Cyclists who do have the right of way are going to be coming fast down the lane. Like you really want to take advantage of that. So, and you're coming right off the bridge, so you're already like coming fast, getting clear of all that traffic. The last thing you want is someone fucking checking WhatsApp on their goddamn, like blocking the lane. You know what I mean? And it's like when you hear people like, hey, the light's green, like either move or get out of the way, but don't be like tuck your scooter 6 inches to the left. And so, like me saying, fuck's wrong with you? Like that's the gentlest of responses. You know what I mean? Like, anyway.
Yeah, I feel in England, probably because violent crime does not usually include guns, that it feels a lot easier to be more passive aggressive.
Yeah, like not having guns has people not knowing how to act in this country in 2 ways. Number one, in the sense that like, yeah, they'll just try shit with people where it's like, bro, I guess probably a combination of not having guns and free healthcare. Like people will just try shit, like you said, being passive aggressive or being really absent-minded and doing stupid shit. But the other thing too is that like, because there's not guns, like people who are inclined to like pick fights, like it can get violent at the drop of a hat here in a way that it kind of doesn't in America. Like obviously, like living in New York for 4 years and growing from the Midwest, like in situations like I've seen, God knows, living in Alaska, you go to places where like, okay, shit gets violent. You see shit get violent on a regular basis. Mercifully haven't been in a fucking public shooting, but you know what I mean? Like I've been near to one. I remember being woken up because a couple of streets down from my house at the park, there was a shooting when I lived in Anchorage. But yeah, like the degree to which people are willing to push other people's buttons in a way where, like I said, like, just And then the other one is the violence, like it can get like people will fight at the drop of a hat here, or a certain kind of person will, and you just see more casual violence in this country than you typically see in America, weirdly. But there's basically no gun crime. I mean, it does happen. Like there are shootings in this country. Like one of our neighbors, her son, who was like my age, got shot to death at the McDonald's in Brixton last year. Like it does happen, but it's just very, very uncommon compared to America.
Right. You have a country where there's not very many guns and everybody has healthcare. So like,
and if there were as many guns as there are in America, they would have way more mass shootings because they're just way more violent and way more like confrontational, contrary to popular belief. But I mean, honestly, it's just a lot of the stereotypes of Brits as being like reserved and calm and fucking whatever. That's complete bullshit. That's a combination of just like a certain kind of class marker that is not really universally true in the first place, and also just like a lot of kind of cultural soft power sort of selling Britain as this like sensible, quirky place.
We're just wee little lads here in the upon the knoll, and like
like the naked man in Tesco. When I make that reference, like everyone knows what I mean. That like
what is the naked man in Tesco?
Is that like Britain's just fucking chaotic, and in certain parts of the country, like if you were in Tesco and a man just walked in completely naked, like that wouldn't necessarily, I mean, it would be out of the ordinary, but it wouldn't be like beyond the pale, because like sometimes just fucking insane shit, like someone completely out of their mind on drugs just walks in naked. Like that kind of shit does happen. So like it sounds
way more interesting than the grocery stores I go to. I've never seen somebody wander around Target.
I mean, I remember watching a guy screaming, rolling around on a bench in Fred Meyer in Anchorage, and then just start vomiting. Like Anchorage is pretty rough, to be honest with you. Like it's just because Alaska's a really poor state, and there's basically no social provisions besides they give you money once a year.
The poor rich state that it is. They have money, it's just not for you.
Yeah, it's a state with like 600,000 people, and it's like in terms of income, it's one of the wealthiest states in America because there's just so few people relative to how many rich people there are. But like when I was living there, it was like the most expensive gas in America, and like everything in the grocery store is expensive. Housing was insanely expensive, and so it's just like a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck in like pretty bad circumstances, and it's like, you can homestead, you can get free land, but like no, you can't. Like you can't really have a fucking normal life like that. Like you can't even really build a house on land like that without a ton of expensive work, because like you have to basically dig a pool and fill it with gravel and then build a foundation, because if you try to build on the land as it is, like in the cycles of freezing and then unfreezing over the course of years, like everything will collapse.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole like leaning house in Alaska kind of fucking cartoon stereotype. It's like, yeah, because if you build straight on muskeg land, like, or like land similar to it, shit's gonna fall apart. It's gonna collapse, because like, so it's just.
Yeah. And I imagine this is not like improved land. It's like there's a chunk of land out there. No, there's no sewer pipes going out to it.
It's a parcel of land out in the middle of fucking nowhere where there's like a road, and you can drive for like 5 hours to get to the nearest like junction where there's a gas station. Like Alaska is unfathomably large, and like once you're into the interior, that's where like the homesteading land is. It's literally like, yeah. So it's not really like, Anchorage, I recall being like far more expensive to buy a house than Indiana, for example. I remember far more. And like, I don't know. I guess that, well, you got to realize that's what I was basing my expectations on.
Sure.
When I moved up there, like how much would it cost to buy? I just wound up renting. How much would it cost to rent? Like it was far more expensive than Indiana, which for a city that looks like as much of a fucking piece of shit as Anchorage does, like that came as a surprise. But I mean, I was young and stupid. I was 23 when I moved there. So like I didn't know anything at all.
Yeah, I mean, and it's still Alaska. And that was 20 years ago, so who knows? Maybe things have improved.
Yeah, not quite 20 years ago. I'm not quite that old. It was just 15 years ago.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I have to think of things in double decades at this point. I'm actually coming up on my 20-year anniversary of my deployment to Afghanistan, if everybody really wants to feel old.
20 years ago, it is in about a week, it'll be 20 years since I moved down to Indiana University Bloomington to start my freshman year of college in the fall of 2003. So I feel old as shit. The fact that like basically around the sort of equivalent of what will be this like the first week of school will be when our daughter is born. Like, yeah, it's definitely I see your marking important milestones, you know. So
Yeah.
maybe my daughter will maybe hear the Outcast song "Hey Ya" on the same calendar day as I did, except 20 years different.
You know, my wife was just mentioning how she was listening to Hey Ya in I don't know, in like some like Target or department store or something like that, and I remarked that that there's a lot of staying power with Outkast Hey Ya, because Beyonce and Lucy Liu are still both fine looking women. So
well, they're still extremely famous, and I was gonna say, I mean, I respect the shout
Beyonce
out.
was just here in St. Louis. She just had a concert here. Everybody's standing out in this, like, people were out in the most disgusting heat since 8 a.m. to see Beyonce, and like
I believe it.
I have, Nate, you and I have been in some disgusting situations with the Army, but I don't think there's anything that would make me.
I accidentally I fucked around and missed a dentist appointment or was late to something, and it wound up creating a problem with our schedule that caused me to us to not be able to attend a Beyonce concert in New York. And Cynthia, she's not actually mad about it, but she hasn't had a chance to see Beyonce live, and she's just like, well, that's how much I love you, is that I miss Beyonce for you. So she's not mad, but she's not gonna forget it either.
Head. Yeah, she's
not gonna
got,
forget it.
She got a little something in the back pocket. Every wife has something in the back pocket. With all of their men, it's fine.
So yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, how are you doing in general? You sounded like you were having some free time, like family away time, so you're just like at the house doing solo dad shit.
No, not even dad. Like I am on my own. Like my wife and kid got on an airplane Saturday afternoon, and they don't come back until Wednesday night, so tomorrow night. Yeah, I used to always think the concept of separate vacations was kind of silly until I realized that, if I stay at home, I get to do whatever the fuck I want. You know, I don't have to wear pants in the house. I can, smoke weed, outside, obviously, but I can do all the, like, all the bachelor shit that, like, I used to do when I was 20s, but I do it at a very reduced rate. I'm having a beer or two at night, not what I would do when I was 23, which was half a case of beer. So it gives me an opportunity. Like, I've got a lot of mailing and stuff to do, but it is nice that the wife and the kid, they go, means I don't have to pay for a dog sitter. I'm here taking care of the dog and the cats, and I get a quiet house, and I get some time with not a whole lot of obligations put on me. And between my job and being a dad and podcast and store and all those things, free time is a very difficult thing to find. So actually, I also went and saw Barbie and Oppenheimer this weekend as well. You used the opportunity to go back to the theater, and I'm very glad I did, because theaters are great again. The last thing I saw in theater was Jackass 4, and then the thing before that was something pre-COVID. So it was nice to have a little time to just go and, like, sit in a dark theater and not look at my phone for a couple of hours and not worry about stuff. So it's been nice. You don't, once you have a kid, you've got to slot being a dad into all of your day-to-day stuff. So it's important to find a little bit of, you time wherever you can. And this is about the outside that I have, like, 4 days, and then I start to be like, all right, I can't continue to live like this. Like, I will die within a year if I continue to be as slovenly and lazy as I'm being right now. So I need them to come back to, set me right again. But, a nice 4 days every 6 to 8 months. And we've had just, like, the ongoing saga of, last December, the kitchen broke, and so we had to rebuild the kitchen.
Yeah,
and
I remember you posting the photos of, like, the channels of where the pipes had to come out, just basically, like, cut away in your floor.
Yeah, in the wall. Yeah, the wall stuff had to be cut away, and I mean, I don't regret it, because the kitchen looks fantastic. I love it. It's a big open concept kitchen, lots of counter space. A lot of things I didn't have beforehand. And then, along with everything, we had a house to sell. My wife had held on to her house, but it was like it was a shotgun house. And if you don't know what shotgun houses are, they are very small, like single to maybe 2 people houses. It's called shotgun because it's all in a row. Like, there's no, it's supposedly a long house. So it's living room, bedroom, kitchen, and then backyard. So that's not an easy house to sell, as it turns out, even in the upmarket. So we finally got that taken care of, caught up on some stuff. So it's been a long 8 months, and this vacation currently is like the culmination of my wife and kid getting a chance to go and relax somewhere, and I get the same thing where I'm at. I get quiet. I can sit and play video games until 11 o'clock at night, and nobody looks at me funny. All the things that you kind of miss doing when you're a kid, not necessarily a kid, but when in your 20s, getting an opportunity to get a little taste of that, and then realize, well, if I kept doing this, I'd die. So I should probably have them come back so I can start eating healthy again, not eat an entire pork steak every night as I have been kind of doing. So
I was thinking about it when you said shotgun house, because I was thinking, yeah, people who don't know that term might recognize a different reference to it, which is when in the song Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads, when David Byrne says, you may find yourself living in a shotgun shack. What he means is in the olden days, these houses, mostly in the South, but yeah, like Francis was saying, you could shoot a shotgun all the way to from the back door to the front door. That was kind of the notion. They're like a long, very small house. A lot of these places were, if you look at old photos of like slum housing in the deep South, they're like built on stilts, kind of like they don't have a foundation. They're kind of raised up houses, and then they I don't know what your wife's one was like, but the old kind of conception of them was like, yeah, they're kind of on stilts. They're a little raised up, so they don't have a foundation, and they don't, like, in floods and stuff, like, they're slightly better off. And then, yeah, they're just literally like, even if you have separate rooms, it's one hallway straight down, and they tend to be real small.
Yeah, and it's a perfect little house for like one person, maybe two, if you two really like each other. And it had a basement, but not a very usable basement. Like we refer to them as the Southside basement because it is a basement, but like the ceiling is maybe about 6 foot high, maybe 6.5 if you're lucky, to up to the rafters, or up to the joists that are holding up your first floor. Very rocky, just basically bare concrete and everything.
Yeah, I mean, you see
wet.
those in some houses here. What those are actually, they're not really meant for basements. Those were coal cellars. So what it would be is that, like, you have stairs from inside the house leading down to, like you said, a very low ceiling kind of thing. And there typically was like a hatch door out front that would give you access to it. And the idea was that back in the days when coal was what you used for heating and for cooking, you would have a coal delivery, and people would come, and the delivery guy could open up the hatch, or you could open it for them. They could dump coal down in the cellar, and then when you needed coal, you just go down there and grab some and bring it up. So like, our house doesn't have it. I think because in South London in general, the houses, I mean, some houses do have basements, but like the soil is really like soft clay. So not a lot of houses that are like Victorian era were built with basements. In general, like, I'm in a basement now because we're in a building that, where our studio is, was actually sort of built to look like a row house, like a Victorian or Edwardian row house, but it was actually built in the 90s. And it does have a basement, but it used to be a printmaker's shop. And quite frankly, I probably should run a fucking dehumidifier in here. There's part of me that wonders, I'm like, I don't think there's like a leak or like, water seeping in. But even in Hackney, where the studio is, which is not South London, it's far north of the river. Like, yeah, it feels like the water table is kind of low, like pretty close to the surface here. And obviously, this is just like a rainy ass country, so there's that as well.
What you do is get an oscillating fan and put it downstairs. If you don't want to pay for a dehumidifier like out the back, an oscillating fan. Well, the house that we had before, where we live now, it was the old Victorian house, and it had a stone foundation, so it leaked, and every time it rained, water all over the floor in the basement because it just seeped right in. And when we were going to sell the house, what we would do is I would go down there, I'd scrub the floor really good to make sure that it didn't look like there's a bunch of mud and shit all over the place, and then put fans down there, and the fans helps, it helped the evaporation of everything up off the floor. So maybe in my wife's old house, same thing. She had a sump pump because her basement, so there's like an underground creek apparently, and when it would really rain, the houses, and she lives on kind of a hill, so the houses down, it flows downward basically. So like hers would get wet, but the one down, like slightly down the hill, would get a little bit wetter, a little bit wetter, a little bit wetter. So she's always had a sump pump in the basement to keep it dry, and then also a dehumidifier and a couple of oscillating fans running. So I'm so fucking glad that like when it rains now, I have just a concrete cube ass house. Like it is a rectangle house. You go downstairs, it's just one big rectangle of concrete down there, and it is dry as a bone. And it is one of the most like, I hesitate to ever move again because I know how strong this house is, and I just
your
don't.
house now is like a post-war house, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a post-war house that was kind of thrown up after World War II as infill, and it's not fancy. There's a lot of things that we wish we had that we don't have, like a porch and access, better access to the backyard. Like we don't have a door that leads to the backyard. We have a side door, so when I want to take the dog out, I have to hold on to her while we go out to the backyard, because otherwise she's a Pyrenees. She'll just go off on an adventure without even thinking about me. So.
Oh, I just realized I have to say this. I'm not making a big production of it on Twitter because I just don't really care anymore. But sadly, folks, friends of the show will recognize photos of my parents' two dogs, the big Great Pyrenees. Unfortunately, Ralph, one of them, passed away. He was very unwell with hip mobility problems and losing his eyesight. And for a working dog, that's pretty bad because he was really like kind of defensively upset all the time, and like he was very unwell, and they took him to the vet to see if there was chance of helping get him to recovery, and unfortunately not. And so
how
Ralph,
old was that dog?
Probably 9 or 10.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, like they don't live very long, especially when they are working dogs, unfortunately. And it's like they're really sweet, hilarious, big, gigantic bears. Ralph was the largest of the two, and he was about 145 pounds. Very, very big dog. Loved him to death. Unfortunately, he has passed away. So, RIP to a real one.
Stella's 7 at this point, and she's not a working dog, so she'll probably last a little bit longer. She lays around a lot, but I do walk her 3 times a day, so she gets exercise. She gets moving around. People constantly stop me while I'm walking the dog. I've walked this dog 3 times a day, every day for like the 3 years that we've lived here. And I still get stopped a couple of times a week with somebody saying, "Whoa, what kind of dog is that?" And it's also very funny that people misgender her and then apologize to me for it. Like, they're like, "Well, that's a big boy, isn't it?" And it's like, "Well, it's a girl." Like, it doesn't matter. It's a dog.
It's a dog. No, it was a friend of mine from home actually lives in Cambridgeshire, and she came down. She swung by our house, dropping off some baby clothes the other day in London, and we were talking about this, about people being like really worried about or offended when people misgender their baby by mistake when they see a baby, and it's like, it's a baby. Like, how the fuck are you gonna know? It has
no gender.
Yeah, it's a baby. Like, yes, it has genitals, but like unless you're seeing them, you don't fucking know. And it's like, who cares? Like, and some people get really hung up. But like, she was talking about how there's like sugar glue that you can get to put like a bow and affix it to like a girl baby. So like everywhere you go, it's like, yep, it's girl baby. And it's like, I just don't care.
No,
I just don't care.
Yeah,
like,
the baby's gonna figure itself out.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
My own daughter is like, does not she likes unicorns and rainbows and shit, and she loves Pusheen the cat. She loves all the cute stuff, but also she's into monster trucks and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And
as my friend said about his son, some days he says he's a boy, some days he says he's a girl, some days he says he's a dinosaur, and it's like, because he's a little kid. You're like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let kids figure it out. Maybe he will grow up to be a dinosaur.
Who knows? I don't, like I said, for me, it's not, like I said on the last episode, it's one of those things where it's like, when you say I don't care, it's not that I don't care like in a dismissive way. It's more, it's like that I don't feel any particular anxiety about this. I don't feel any concern. Like, I just, it's one of those, it's like, yeah, misgendering the baby by mistake is like misgendering the dog by mistake. It's like, I'd be a little more weirded out if someone aggressively, intentionally misgendered a baby versus a dog. It's just sort of like, well, I guess like, is being a good boy gender neutral? Who knows? What I was going to say though is, I did find it really funny because this is just another one of those moments. Thinking about the dog dying. The way I found out was that I got a notification on my phone that says Sonia Bethay, my mom, has tagged you in a photo on Google Photos, and it was called R.I.P. Ralph. I was just like, God damn it! Like, it's such, and I saw she had texted me overnight. And I had notifications silent, so I hadn't seen it. And she's like, "Hey, Ralph's not doing well. We're taking him to the vet to see what we can do." And then that was the next one. I was just like, Fuck. God damn it.
Don't you love our current information age?
I don't want to make fun of my parents too much, but my mom and dad are coming to visit, in October after the baby's born. And my mom was in a hurry and decided to book a place to stay. And Cynthia had said, you should probably look for something near London Bridge because, quite frankly, like that area around Waterloo Station is like really touristy. And so there's good amounts of hotels and stuff to do. Like for really residential areas, you might find yourself kind of like far from stuff and bored. So my mom was like, cool, all right, I found a place. And I was here soldering a cable. Cynthia was on a work call. And my mom was like, hey, I found this place. Let me know what you think. And then 5 minutes later, she was like, hey, I didn't hear back from you, so I just booked it. And Cynthia texted me and she's like, Nate, I know you're busy. I think your mom booked a condo in Arizona. Can you please look? And I looked at him like, sure enough, it was the London Bridge condo in Arizona. And like somewhere on the border of Arizona, on a lake on the border of Arizona and California. There's like a golf course with palm trees everywhere. I'm like you're from this country. Whatever.
Maybe American soft power has extended itself so far that it's creating palm trees somewhere in inner London.
Yeah, exactly. And also houses that look extremely American. I was like, no house looks like this in Britain. Like it's way too nice. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, how long has it been since she's been to the home country?
40 years. Yeah, she hasn't been back. Yeah, but it was worse back then. It was so much
that's
worse.
The thing. She's like, yes, they've improved so well. Look, they have desert houses and
palm trees and golf courses. They drive on the right. The roads are very obviously designed. They have zip codes now, and London has a fucking postal identifier of AZ.
Yeah, it's got an Arizona London now. The inner heat boroughs of England.
Oh my god, yeah. So like I said, I'm dealing with the boomer parent thing right now, and it's very funny. Like having to explain to my mom that you don't need a transformer to charge an iPad when overseas.
You know what? That's good information. I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, modern stuff typically like you have to just check the AC adapter that it comes with, but it'll give you a range on that it'll typically be carved in or printed on the housing of the adapter or on the label. And it'll tell you, like for your computer's AC adapter, for iPhones, iPads, etc., those things typically have a range of like 100 to 240 volts. So as long as you have the plug to plug in anywhere, you're fine. Like for a heavier thing, for some kind of like complicated circuitry, or specifically for stuff with like DC motors, like direct current stuff, like a power drill or like a KitchenAid mixer or like a coffee grinder or stuff that's got like a direct current motor in it, that stuff you absolutely cannot plug in without a transformer, because like it doesn't have a thing to adapt it to alternating current. It literally just plugs straight in the fucking and gets DC power.
It needs one of those bricks.
Yeah, and so like I have a couple of those at home, like to use with so the stuff that, for example, that I have on AC or on transformers, I have a coffee grinder, like a Breville one that I bought in America that I liked and just kept. I do have a KitchenAid mixer, so like I use it with this, and I have a rice cooker. And that doesn't surprise me that a rice cooker, because they have like some pretty complicated sensors in them and stuff like that for and the heating element and stuff like that. It doesn't surprise me that it is most certainly running off AC power, but it doesn't have what's it called, a power supply in there to accommodate like that full range of voltage. And then I have my stereo, so it's like a big stereo amplifier. And weirdly, the digital analog converter device that I have, even though it only uses like 13 watts, it doesn't. It only works on it. Like it's made by a Japanese company, but like they make a 110 model for America. I think they must make a 100-volt model for Japan because they use a weird voltage there. And then like I suppose if they sell it here, they sell it on like a 230. But that's basically it. And then box fans, the fucking Lasco box fans, absolute champions for getting us through hot British weather before we got an air conditioner. Those obviously are like cheap fans with DC motors. They're not gonna work on power. Everything else we own though, like literally all the computer stuff, all computer power supplies, like all the mobile devices, things of that nature. I guess my printer, my laser printer also needs a 110 power. But basically everything new that I buy, it seems like if it has like a wall wart, like power brick thing, that's enough. That'll get you through on basically any power. So like if you're traveling internationally, either get an adapter or just like get the plug-in cable attachment for the country you're in. That's what I do. When I go to Switzerland, I have I bring one for my laptop, and then I have a regular Euro plug USB charger. And between those two, I'm totally fine. I don't need to use an adapter for anything.
when I was in Iraq, everything in Iraq and Afghanistan ran off of 220. Like when we weren't necessarily in an American building, someplace that used by the Soviets at some point or used by Afghans or something along those lines, and they have 220. And every time I would plug the laptop that the military had given me, and it was this brief moment where they gave everybody in PAO MacBooks, and it was rated for the 220, but for whatever reason, I would plug it in, and where my wrists rested on it, I would constantly get shocked. There was just like a constant flow of electricity into my wrists while I was using.
That's probably more to do with where you were, like the electricity of the building that you were in.
I can't believe that you would sit here and tell me that the electrical
that was probably built by fucking like Fluor or like Halliburton or some bullshit. Yeah, like that sounds like a problem with the grounding in the building itself.
More than likely, or something to do with an all metal chassis on the.
That's possible. Yeah, I mean that maybe you're. That's one of those things where like something could have come loose, or maybe something was wrong with the power adapter itself. Like your power adapter plug was something was fucked up about it, and so it was connecting and touching the chassis, and therefore it was like you were grounding it out. But like obviously, if you were grounding out 220 volts, like it wouldn't be like ooh little pain. It would be like you'd wake up on the ground.
I continued to use it, so obviously it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's I mean, because my mom is correct in the sense that when we last lived in America or in Europe, that you needed a transformer, and I had to be like, I was like, yeah, stuff's advanced, like most stuff. Check the AC adapters, you can probably just use it here. But the other part of me was like, yes, Mom, but when was the last time? Do you recall using an iPad in 1993 or an iPhone? Like stuff has changed just a little.
Yeah, I think we also had a power converter that somebody had built. And was like in a wooden crate, and nobody wanted to use it except for me because I needed a power converter so I could play Xbox. So I had a power converter. Never caught on fire or killed anybody. So it must have been done somewhat correctly.
Yeah, I remember my Battalion XO, like we got a fridge, like a local purchase fridge in Afghanistan, and we had to get like a transformer and like a power conditioner thing to make it work correctly, because the buildings we were in obviously were like B huts built by whatever contractor, and they were running off generator power on the FOB in Afghanistan, and they were doing 110, but like if you bought anything in Afghanistan it was going to be 220. I know it's 220 or 230. In Europe it's actually 230.
Yeah, it's 230, I think.
Yeah, I can't really recall. I just remember, because here it's the same. Like that's the thing, knowing that stuff's different elsewhere in the world, you always assume that like, okay, well, if they have different plugs, it must be completely different. It's like actually like British stuff runs on this. Basically anything you buy in Britain, you can plug it in and it's fine in continental Europe. I think they even use the same, it's 230 volts. I think they use the same frequency. I'm not sure. I can't remember if it's 50 or 60 hertz in all countries in Europe, but like it's fine.
Well, if England wants to properly Brexit, it needs to stop that shit.
Yeah, it needs to go to like some kind of arcane, stupid fucking voltage. Yeah.
Yeah, now 250 volts. That's what you guys are gonna
everything
run
is 300 volts. It's like, we're I don't know, dude. Yeah, but the one thing that's funny about Britain though is that obviously like they have a completely different plug. So Britain and Ireland use a completely different plug than the rest of Europe, and like there are some differences in Europe. Like Switzerland and Italy have their own, but pretty much everywhere else just uses the one that you're familiar with. Which I saw pretty often in Afghanistan, but I'll be honest with you, in Afghanistan, you saw any kind of thing. Anything that could be a socket was used as a socket. So I saw like the Schuko plugs, Euro plugs, I saw British plugs, I saw American plugs. Like, yeah, it can, but I would say
Is Schuko the one where it's the circle with the two prongs?
Yeah, so Schuko is like a abbreviation. It stands for Schutzkontakt, so like contact protection.
It's German?
It's German, but like
that makes sense, and not like in a anti-German way, but because where I was living at one point was built by Germans, and it had that power.
Yeah,
thing in there.
So the French and the German ones were basically the same, but the German ones had like for a while they weren't compatible because they had a different style of kind of grounding pin, but they've created this kind of universal Schuko plug that can be used on both, and so that's basically what you see whenever like. I sometimes buy electronics equipment for things for the studio, music equipment, etc. And from some vendors that have warehouses in the UK, but like are probably European companies. And so often like they'll send you a thing and it'll include a UK cable extra in the package, but like when you open the actual box for the item itself, the only plug that it's got is the European one. And yeah, it's always like that one with the 2 prongs, the circle one. It's got like a groove, and it's got like the French one, if I remember correctly, had a plug, like a protruding, sticking out plug inside the socket that was the ground pin. And the German one had like a notch thing with kind of like a metal ring contact. And so what they basically did with it is they've created a plug that can work in both. And so now, like, yeah, if you get that and you plug it in fucking, Ukraine or in Poland or in Portugal or wherever, I think it'll work.
This sounds like when I ordered a new phone, and it comes with, like, it used to just like, here's your phone and here's your charging cable, but it's like, here's a charging cable, here's a wall wart, here's an adapter, here's for whatever bullshit you have at home. Because like we had a standardization of USB, and now we're not standardizing that. We had a brief moment, and now we're at USB-C.
Apple really didn't want to, but now they're at the point where they're going to be forced to in the EU, and so chances are good, like, knowing Apple, like, they're just going to do USB-C everywhere because they don't want to have to create separate assembly lines for stuff. I mean, USB-C is what it is, obviously, like, it's smaller than USB-A, but, it is kind of annoying now where, like, as stuff gets more common, but, like, more anywhere you go where there's a USB charging thing, it's probably going to be USB-A, and very rarely will it have both.
Yeah, I've thought about a few times, like, because I know how to replace sockets and whatnot, so getting one of those ones that has the USB chart plugs in, but they're all USB-A, and it's like, yeah, I don't want, like, yeah, that'll be fine.
You can get combo ones, but it'll typically be one and then the other, and so it's like, depends on what you want.
Yeah, and my phone does wireless charging now, so I'm very excited about it. I put it on the little circle.
I have a wireless charging compatible phone in case, so like I don't really use it at home, but like I think we have one here in the studio. And then weirdly, some of those rental bikes, like the app rental bikes that you can get in big cities, and London is one of them, where it's like the bike is just on the street and it's like an electric pedal assist bike, so it can only go like 16 miles an hour, or rather you can go faster than that, but the bike weighs like 75 pounds, and after 16 miles an hour the electric assist cuts out. But you rent them like using a smartphone, you scan a thing, and some of them actually have like phone holders on them with contactless charge, like wireless charging on them. So that's pretty cool. I wouldn't put my phone up there unless I really needed the charge, because in London that's like a big like neon sign being like, please steal my phone off this stupid bike.
I tell you what, I got a flip phone. I'm going back. We're going back to the way it was.
Like a folding phone or a flip phone? What's that like? Because to me that technology just looks like surely it's going to just degrade really fast.
So according to Samsung, they've tested it of like opening and closing them, 50 times a day for however, this is like, look, it works. But also it has a screen on it for when it's folded up. So I can just check my messages really quick. I don't have to open up the whole phone and because you open up the phone and you're like, oh, I'm going to check this message, I'm going to check this, I'm going to check that, and then you're just fucking sucked into your phone for 10 minutes. This is great. I can open it up, and just from the front of the screen, I can tap in whatever I need. But also because it folds, and I know this is not so much for me, but ladies with your tiny pockets, this thing is great because it folds down into something that can slide into a small pocket. It's still kind of heavy, but I like it. The little fold in the center is, I don't know, it doesn't annoy me as much as I thought it would, I guess. But yeah, it's great. I'm enjoying it. I like the act of closing the phone is kind of a finality of the phone. Like, I'm looking at it, okay, I'm going to close it and I'm done, and I'm going to do something else, having just the phones beforehand, where it's just open, I have more of a chance of getting sucked into stuff. So I don't know. So far I'm really enjoying it. I would highly recommend it, especially if like you were our age and you remember flip phones and the just tactile feeling of snapping a phone close when you're done with a phone call. Like, I make more phone calls now because I want to do that. So
that's so funny. Yeah, I weirdly, Cynthia got me a Garmin watch for like recording my bike rides and runs, because before then I was just like running an app on the phone while I was running or riding my bike, and then just turning it off when I got in. And so obviously like having the watch is cool, because then you don't have to be like, you can start it and stop it on your watch, and the synchronization's better. You get heart rate data, stuff like that. So it's cool for tracking workouts and just like, keeping track of how much exercise I'm getting every week. But also, like, you can have it do push notifications on the watch. Now, I know that for some people that would be too annoying and distracting. And there are definitely times when I switch the watch into do not disturb mode because I just don't want to be bothered by my vibrating watch. But I would actually say, weirdly, having the watch do that can be better in some ways because, like, if I get a notification, if it's not important, I just ignore it. As opposed to, like, hear your phone vibrate, so you grab your phone to check what it is, and then you're using your phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then you're kind of sucked into the vortex. I've actually found...
I have a Samsung watch, and messages from our WhatsApp comes through, for our group and my wife, and orders to the store come through on my watch, and that's it. Everything else is ignored. That's how I like it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I like I said, knowing how to turn on do not disturb mode on the watch itself, because like I don't necessarily want my phone in do not disturb at that moment, but I definitely want the watch to stop vibrating. That's a better solution than grabbing the watch and throwing it, which I've definitely done before because I'm just like, stop fucking texting me.
Mm-hmm.
But never to you, but to other other situations.
And you know what? If you did it to me too, I totally understand. If you're in the middle of something and your wrist keeps vibrating with notifications, I do it too with my family group chat. Like there's like 10 people in there, and if they all start really talking about some wildflowers or something like that, I have to take the watch off.
Yeah, I get it 100%. I mean, I'm not as stressed out these days with some things, although like, not gonna lie, there's definitely some like redesign needed on that thing I was talking about, the audio relay. Like it works, but I think bridging between two different things that are running on wall power, like there's just too much noise interference, and I'm gonna have to figure something out either like with resistors or just like doing a one-to-one transformer, like a small transformer on the circuit board and stuff like that. Once I get that built, it's like it's annoying because like I really was so close to having all this fucking shit off the floor, and now I don't think I'm gonna get it done before the baby's born. Like it's just I think to be actually dependably, reliably working, it's just not gonna happen. Like it's not gonna happen in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And it's annoying. And so like while that was happening and shit kept fucking breaking, or like I just couldn't figure out what was causing this like these like buzzing fault noises and things like that when I was listening to it, there were definitely like getting annoying texts. And I was just like, stop fucking texting me. But I just took the watch off. And so like I didn't throw it this time. Yeah, that's the side of improvement, that when I'm irritated, I just put it in do not disturb and take the watch off, as opposed to the previous incarnation of myself where I would definitely have thrown it. So yeah, that's it's one of those things where you live and learn, you get better at stuff. And for me, it's like sometimes the thing that you would think wouldn't work for me, that like would be too annoying, actually can be helpful, just because it's like it's good at. I notice this when I'm not wearing the watch, when it's charging or whatever, that like then when my phone vibrates in my pocket or whatever, like I feel like, oh, I need to check it, and I'm glad I don't have to do that. But
my phone is always silent. Like I don't have any.
Yeah, me too.
Like,
me too.
I have the notifications, but it doesn't come up with anything.
I the only time I ever turn my phone off silent is like literally if I've got an important call and I need to like take a shower or something. That's literally it. Like other than that, I'll just I make it a point to always have it on silent, but I do have it on vibrate at least, which Cynthia doesn't even have it on vibrate. Like she's got a whole different fucking ethos when it comes to that stuff.
No, I'm with Cynthia. I'll look at my phone when
I would just forget shit, man. I will absolutely forget about like stuff that people are trying to get in touch with me for if I don't do that. Like I don't have my phone. Like the idea that if someone needs to call me and get in touch with me about something and like I won't know because like I don't get a notification and there's not even a vibration, like no, like I will miss a lot of important shit if I do that. Because I put my phone down and I'm not looking at it. So, I'm a lot better now about screen time, I think, in that regard. I wish that translated into like reading more books, but I don't know if my brain has healed from Twitter and the absence of Twitter that much yet. It
takes a while. Well, hey, let's do our questions for Dad.
We're almost at the point where we're gonna have to hit up people for more questions, which is
Carrie
fun.
mentioned that we should do an advice. I know you did a Q&A over on Lines Led by Donkeys.
Mm-hmm.
We should do a whole advice episode, maybe for you and me and for the zoo crew. But go ahead with today's.
So some of the ones I haven't highlighted because we haven't been done are just kind of joke questions. So I'm not gonna go to those. And we've already done what's the best compliment a listener's ever given you. So. Okay, as someone with a remarkably shit father who now has kids, I've struggled to reconcile my own upbringing with what I can plainly see and objectively understand to be right and wrong once I had my own flesh and blood in front of me and understood what the job, dad, and responsibility of father actually are. Do you have any insights to offer from moments of conflicting emotions, or as I'd rather think, the clarity dadhood can bring out in you regarding either your own upbringing, your time in the military, or any general cultural concerns. And then cheers, thanks for the fantastic content. So I think the question here is like, have you had any kind of moments where you feel conflicted or you felt like clarity from doing stuff as a parent where you realized like, oh, this is, a thing I should do or I shouldn't have done, or my dad shouldn't have done, my parents shouldn't have done, that kind of a thing, like what your job actually is. And it's kind of an open-ended question, but I'm interested because I don't know, I don't have a kid yet, but I've definitely felt some things differently since knowing that I was going to be a father. And so I'm interested in what you have to say.
I know my wife has talked about it with her mom, and not like, my wife has a great relationship with her mother. They talk all the time, but she was raised in the 80s, 80s and 90s, when like a lot of, they just didn't know a lot of things that we know now. And one thing is, raising a child who does have special needs of her own really gave me a lot of patience. It really made me realize, like, it's, my daughter is 8 years old. Her brain is not done forming. Like, the idea of like punishing her with any kind of like grounding or hitting or anything like that, like those don't teach anything. Like, and I think that like we always, it's hard for me to like, especially when she's really fucking on one, and you're gonna understand what that means soon enough with a kid. But sometimes she will just really be on one, and especially when she was younger, it's just like, God, like you want it to just like, what is the thing that's gonna make this stop? And because of our upbringing and because of the society we live in, spanking or hitting does come into your head. And the important thing is, though, is to realize, like, no, that's obviously not what's going to do this. Like, do not hit a child. Like, that child doesn't, it's like hitting a dog. A dog doesn't understand why you're hitting it. Same thing for a 3-year-old, or even if your kid is older, like 8, like it's a lot easier to just talk to her or explain things to her. Or when she is, having a lot of problems, she's having a meltdown. It's just like, look, can you please just go into your room and read a book for 10 minutes? And then we can have this discussion. Then you will calm down. I will be calmed down. Everybody can, and then we can have the discussion about, I don't know, who should you eat the toast that I made you or not, or whatever it is that you're angry at me about. So I feel like there's a lot of, I get, because I had a great dad and mother, so I don't have a lot, they didn't hit, they were very open and forthcoming and everything like that. So I can model a lot of what I do off of them. But it is hard, but it is also just remember, like, the things that your parents did to you that you don't like, don't do those things. And I know that's a very easy and simplistic way of saying it, but people who, how many people do you see is like, oh, well, I got hit as a kid and I'm perfectly fine, so it's okay to hit other kids. Like, not everybody understands those lessons. Not everybody comes out of the other end. Yeah,
like and the fact that you are turning around and using that to justify why you should hit kids is kind of proof that you did not, in fact, turn out fine.
Right.
Like, I can definitely, there's a lot of things in terms of my parents' relationship with each other that I model my own behavior on, and how I try to treat my wife and that kind of thing. As far as parenting goes, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff that I just don't really want to talk about on a public platform, but I can recognize now that, like, it's taken a lot of attention and discipline and work and therapy to be able to kind of figure out, like, you don't necessarily have to respond this way that you would have responded, when as a kid, the stakes were that a bad thing was going to happen to you if this was certifiably your fault, for example, if you had done something wrong. Like, I think I do have still a tendency towards being incredibly defensive in situations. And I think when there's anything wrong, and I think the reason for that is you can connect the dots. And that's a thing that I really very much want to avoid my daughter having. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, when I see parents hit their kids in public, I'm going to fucking murder them. I'm going to fucking kill them. Like, it makes me so angry I can't even put it into words. But I know that saying or doing anything
thankfully do not see that.
I see it here periodically. And even if it's not people hitting, I have seen people hitting their kids, but it's people being incredibly fucking cruel and shitty to their kids. Like I see that a lot. Brits hate children, man. They fucking hate their kids, and it makes me so angry, so incredibly angry. And so like, it's one of those things where it's a hard line for me. And Cynthia and I are both in agreement that like, yeah, I know there's going to be times when I'm going to really want to lose my temper. And weirdly, like I've watched lots of kids of different ages. I've taken care of kids for extended periods of time. I know it's not the same as being a parent, but I've never wanted to hit them. Never wanted to hit them ever. But I have wanted to lose my temper. And I know that when I lose my temper, it's fucking going to be scary for a kid. So that's the biggest thing for me that I'm worried about, is not ever feeling temptation to hit my child. Not at all. It's just more like I never want to like shout. I never want to use the voice that I'm capable of ever. And not even just to her, but around her. You know what I mean? Because I recognize that like it's scary, and I just don't want, I never want that reaction. You know what I mean?
So I about a month ago, I had to use dad voice on Lily because she was not going to bed, and she was being, which is going to happen. Kids don't want to go to bed; they want to stay up and all that. And you want them to go to bed because you want them to stop talking to you for like any amount of time. So it wasn't yelling; it was stern. It was I'm gonna admit this. I knife hand my daughter. You know.
To understand this for context, he doesn't mean there's no physical contact, but he did the 5-finger point.
Yeah, I five finger pointed at her about you need to get in, brush your teeth. He'll give you 5 minutes of reading, and then you're going to turn off the light and go to bed. And she was a little taken aback by that. So I felt bad about that. But you know, for the person who's asking, I think the biggest and the most important thing is that you are recognizing that you had a shitty upbringing and that you don't want to do that. But don't just be like, oh well, I recognize it, so it's going to be fine. Like you still have to fight against those things. Like as Nate was just saying, he has to fight against his temper sometimes. My wife has a temper, but I understand her temper. I understand that her temper is flash angry and then she's fine. My daughter is very much the same way. So the biggest things that you can do is understand your wife and your kid, or your partner and your kid, but also be willing to, and also talk to your spouse and be like, look, sometimes I need to leave the house for an hour and a half. My wife does this often. I will get off of work and she'll just look at me and be like, I'm going to Target for an hour. And she will get into the car and she will go and get some Starbucks, and she'll wander around Target somewhere where it's quiet. And she's not being asked a million different questions. And, and that's fine. Daughter and I hang out, and she can, talk my ear off for a little bit, and it's fine. So I think also like making sure that, you have those breaks so that you don't come into like portions where you're not gonna get upset. You're not. I'm just saying, lean on each other. You've got a spouse, you've got a partner or something like that. Lean on them to be like, look, I'm going crazy and I'm going to yell at the kid if I don't get an hour to just walk around outside without anybody talking to me. And
I would also say too, just like another thing too is just don't be afraid to apologize to your kid if you do fuck up.
Oh God, yes, please. I apologized to her like the day that she left, because she was wanting to mix her. She had medicine that we have to add to like liquid, and she was wanting to mix it, and it requires like specific measurements and stuff. And she's like, I want to do it. And I was like, no, please just let me do this. And she's like, but I really want to do this. And I was like, you know what? I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. You do it. Have some self-determination. You're right. You can do this. Let me give that to you. Because they're not going to see that as a weakness. They're going to say, "Oh, my parents are able to, I guess, be negotiated with, or at least to." I get one thing that I know a lot of parents have problems with is they say no, and then they think they have to stick to no. And I'm going to tell you, you don't. You don't have to stick with no. You can say no, and then change your mind later and be like, "Look, I said no, but we're all calmed down now, so I'm going to say yes, let's go and do thing, or let's watch whatever thing that we said we were going to do." Because, like, when you're angry, you're going to say a lot of things, and then when you're not angry, you're going to wish that you could take them back. And you can take them back. You can say, I'm sorry.
And I think about this too, that, like you teach kids that when they make mistakes, they need to apologize. It's like, why why wouldn't you be the same towards them? You know, and that's the thing. I think Cynthia and I have talked about this a lot, and I think that we're both in agreement, but we'll see. I know that like it's going to get real very shortly, so I'll keep you updated
what?
on that.
I'm also going to tell you one thing that still happens with my kid today is that every 6 weeks to about 3 months, they're going to completely change on you. Everything's going to be turned upside down, and they're going to be into this thing, and then they're not going to be into it, and then they're going to. When my daughter goes through growth spurts, man, there's an absolute hellish week because she doesn't sleep, but she eats constantly and she's very argumentative. But you just have to know those things. Like, oh, you're not sleeping, you're constantly eating, you're crabby, and you hurt a lot. You're going through a growth spurt. I got it. You know, we can, and you know what? I'm going to say that we're very lucky. I'm going to wrap it up. We're very lucky that we get to homeschool. That she always gets to be in a very comfortable place where she can have all the emotions that she has without it being a problem. Like I'm not saying that she wouldn't do well in school, but she would just be different. She would have to mask more. She would have to not be her. And she's not, I don't know. It's hard to be like, no, my kid's different and special and she doesn't conform, but kind of is, but like, not in that like, we're so special kind of way. It is just like, no, she has literal problems with some of this stuff. It's a lot easier to do it this way without her having to feel like she has to be beaten down all day at a school. Like kind of I felt like at times. So, but anyway, that's a lot of rambling.
No, it's all good, man. It's been great talking to you. And for everyone out there, just FYI, if you want to hear more of us, of course, we've got a Patreon. $5 a month will get you every bonus episode we have ever done since the beginning of 2017. As also $10 a month will get you free patches, pins, and other swag that Francis will post to you, mail to you rather. I forget. I am actually an American.
Yes, and then otherwise, we post on Twitter.
We post on Twitter. We mail stuff at the post office. I also would say, we have a YouTube channel. Francis has been putting out videos on that as well. We have a Discord that you get membership with. It's joined up with the Discord for Lions Led by Donkeys. So if you join the Patreon, you get access to that as well. So, and then obviously, like, we appreciate nice ratings and reviews, word of mouth sharing, stuff along those lines. That's always really helpful. And thanks for all the very thoughtful questions for Ask a Dad. We got a couple more, but we'll put out the feelers to solicit more input from you. And then when I come back from paternity leave, we'll start answering those, and I'll have lots of insights on getting pooped on and puked on and other things about little baby.
Hey, you know what? I never got pooped on.
Oh, that's great.
Almost got me once when she was 11 days old, but I dodged.
Didn't you say she pooped in the bath one time? I think I remember you tweeting about that.
She pooped in the bath a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
For some kids, like you're gonna learn about inputs and outputs of children real.
Oh
real
no,
fast.
I know. My Cynthia's friend has a 12-week-old son, and he's come over and they went for a walk, and then Cynthia was like, yeah, he had a blowout, and like literally like it got on her clothes.
Yeah, it's incredible sometimes to see like, okay, you are 15 pounds and you've managed to shit so hard that it went up your back and got into your hair. What the fuck?
Yeah, I'm glad.
But you love them. They change your brain chemistry to make you love them because stuff like that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being listeners, and we'll talk to you next week.
Take care.